republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, thank you. All right. The approval of this agenda for this evening.
Approve the agenda for that.
Properly moved in second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to consent agenda. Motion, please.
Approve the consent agenda for that.
Properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Moving right along. Superintendent's report, Dr. Rodriguez.
Boom, here we go. So a few different things that we kind of have. Just trying to make sure that we are keeping everybody updated on kind of what's going on. So when we talk about kind of COVID at the moment, we're still unfortunately having to have this discussion. We kept that as an item on my report just to make sure that we keep everybody updated. So overall things have gone fairly well from the start of school. We are in week 5. But that's certainly not without its challenges and not without things that we knew were kind of coming. So at times we still have staff members that go on quarantine or have tested positive, and we have students being the same way. So every single week we still update the dashboard that's online. So we want to make sure that we call everybody's attention to that. We have sent that out to parents as well, just trying to remind them. Those of you that are parents have seen these as well, but as we have issues in buildings, we send those notes out to families as well. Most families, I think, are still very happy at the transparency around that. We do get a question or two every once in a while about, okay, that seems like I've received a lot. But again, if you're receiving one, the percentage is really what we're looking at. We're looking at the percentages of one class or percentages of what's happening in that building. And as we communicate with the health department, they're the ones that are kind of guiding us on, you know what, I think we have a concern right there that maybe we need to look at. And so we got a question just about when would you shut down a building or a classroom or whatever like that. So we look at the percentages and we talk with Mary Rhodes, obviously, communicates with Dr. Maya, and we go to the health department. So continue to send out those letters, continue to make sure to let everybody know kind of what's going on to the best of our ability. We're also very cautious about trying to make sure that we protect privacy at times. So we have to be cautious of how do we make sure that that person's not identifiable and those kind of things. So, it's still an ongoing concern. Tonight, later in the meeting a little bit, you'll hear from C&I kind of talking with Dr. King about the way that we're doing it this year in terms of instructionally, how does that work with our teachers? And so you'll see a little bit more of that, what those responsibilities are and how that's worked. And so she'll go into that just a little bit more in depth, but it goes in cycles. I can tell you in my calls with the health department, we are in a very good spot in terms of the county. We have decreased every single week in terms of our 14-day average, 7-day average, and percentage positive every single week for the last 4 or 5 weeks. We still are a few weeks away from being under hopefully one more week under what the CDC guidelines say is a high transmission. So we're still not where we need to be, but if this continues over the course of the next month, the health department is very optimistic that we'll finally be in a much better place. So we'll see what happens there. In terms of masking, these are things that we continue to do in our district. As you look at the CDC guidelines, and in particular, these are items, the more strategies and things that we have in place, it keeps our kids in school. We're able to do more of that. It also helps keep our teachers and staff members safe and everybody in school as well. So we will continue doing those things as we talk with the health department and follow their recommendations as we have been since the very beginning of all this. Again, we are still back to now weekly meetings. Over the summer, we kind of went to about once a month. And then with the variant kind of coming back and starting school, we were back to our weekly phone calls. So still in conversations with them every single week to try to make sure that we are just caught up to date as best we possibly can. So overall, again, you hear a lot of national stories about concerns around staffing, and we're still having some of those in some areas. We struggle a little bit with transportation at times. We're still hiring bus drivers. We still have a few positions there. We've been more fortunate than some. I can only think of 2 days that were really bad to the point where we had students that were significantly late and to school and home. So, that's not bad when I talk to some of my peers and they're really struggling to just get kids to school. I heard from one district that said that there are days that they actually rotate around in every single area, and they ask their parents to take their kids to school at different spots in different areas because they just don't have enough drivers to do that. We're still struggling to make sure that we are fully staffed, but thankfully we have an amazing transportation department that is able to continue doing this. We also have a wonderful transportation director, which unfortunately a lot of days is driving as well. We even had, unfortunately, the athletic director at times have to take bus and do that. So they are all very willing and happy to do that, but obviously our hope is that we can put together a plan that will actually help maybe keep, attract a few more and retain. So we have a few strategies that we're going to be putting in place, and I'll send some information to you probably over the course of the next week so you can kind of see what our strategy is there. I think our grounds crew is finally fully staffed, which is good. I think we're still struggling a little bit in a few other areas. We've got some custodial help and things like that we're struggling with. Food service, we still have like a manager over at Con West and a few spots, but overall we're doing fairly well considering. The staffing is still a concern. Another national story that I just want to make sure, and especially regionally and locally in the Kansas City area, is around food service, and in particular our ability to make sure that we can still feed our kids. We are fortunate again that we do have an international organization company in Sodexo that does provide those things for us. They work with other contractors and things like that. They are a major contributor to those organizations. And so we're very fortunate that we've not had to see those shortages as of yet. There are challenges, and I would not say that everything is perfect. But again, I heard from a colleague that they don't even do a menu anymore. They just put out whatever they have and what they can feed. So we are still doing menus, and we're still able to do most things. There's just some things that we can't quite get in stock right now due to those shortages. We'll see if that changes, but as of right now, they still feel pretty good that we'll not have a significant interruption to our food service for our kids, like you've heard and you've seen with some of the other schools. So again, I feel really fortunate with where we are right now, considering what I hear and some of the negative things that unfortunately are happening to some of our colleagues and neighboring districts. But as of right now, we're in a pretty good spot, all things considered. So again, I just know I'm hearing those things and I'm reading all those things. So I can certainly imagine that you're hearing those things and reading all those things and maybe getting questions. And so I just want to make sure that I can reassure that we're, as of September 23rd at 6:39, we're in a really good spot with all those things. We'll continue to update you if that changes at all. Any questions around any of that? That's a lot of information. I just wanted to make sure and try to give you as much as possible. Team, anything I missed? Good.
I don't have a question, but I just want to say, several of us up here are parents of current students, meeting one of them. I appreciate the communication about COVID. I've got 2 kids in 2 different schools. And I just think when I get the emails that say we have 1 positive, I'm thinking, great, that's 1. Flu season, most years, sometimes you have a quarter of the kids out because they're sick. 1 positive to me is mild compared to what I've seen, especially in elementary schools during regular flu season. So I appreciate the vigilance and trying to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, I think since the beginning of this, one of the things that we kept talking about was the items that we were trying to spend our money on. We were trying not to just spend money on something that we would only need for today or until this is over. And so knowing that cold and flu is never really going to ever go away, and they're always going to have individuals that leave, we want to make sure that we still continue to have a high level of cleanliness in our buildings and do anything that we can. If we have a flu outbreak, what do we do? We've had those kind of things happen where 1 or 2 buildings get hit really, really hard. We have some of those items now. We have a level of cleaning now. We have the ultraviolet lights. We're looking at some additional air quality testing and some other things that we could do to make sure that not just for now, but ongoing, that we can continue to combat the things that we know are always going to be in our world. So I feel like we're in a really good spot right now. But again, I always say that, but I also want to say it's not without its challenges and it's not without some significant things that we're still dealing with. A few things just real quickly on, certainly number one, there's a lot of good news in here. We've had some really good attendance at our football games. It's really been good. Especially when you go through an entire year and season without really anybody there. The revenues that are provided for that obviously go back to our kids and go back to a lot of the things in our athletic departments. So it's been nice to see fans. It's been nice to talk to the community and all those particular components. The GHS ambassador group, I'm really excited about that. I talked to Ms. Thurman about that the other day and some things that I want to be able to do with that group as well. And then just again about Martin City and kind of the grand opening, so to speak, of that. We'll keep you updated on that as well. But very excited about the finishing touches there. Calling your attention on the board priorities again. Certainly some things coming up. That's a variety of different positive things that have kind of gone on. If you've not already signed up and you're not able to attend, maybe do a sponsorship or do something, maybe sponsor a couple people. But we have 5K on Saturday, so I'll steal a little bit of Ms. Boy's thunder there, but that is coming up on Saturday, and I will be racing in that. Looking forward to it, but you're going to hear about the creation of the instructional plan. You're going to hear about that tonight, and just again, I'm really excited about the micro-region work that we're doing around pathways. I'm looking at the calendar and trying to determine the better time to really make sure that the board gets updated on everything that's kind of happened, and really exciting to be on a call and hear from the other districts, giving Grandview kudos for how much we've been able to do, even in spite of being in a pandemic last year. Still a lot of really positives that have happened. Some of our kids, they're really getting some awesome experiences right now. Again, never where we want to be, but we've got a lot of really positive things going on. So kind of looking at a full presentation for you. That may be at the next workshop, maybe one of our board meetings, but we'll kind of pick and choose. So that way it's not a midnight kind of a deal in one of our board meetings, but I want to make sure that you get that information too. And that's it for me.
Yeah. Questions? All right, move on. Do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak to any agenda items tonight? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to action. Rodriguez.
Right, with your permission, I would love to be able to, we have a presentation from Johnson Controls, so we have some guests here. If possible, I'd like to move that up and just have them go first, if that's okay with you.
Please do.
So as you know, we have had a experience with Johnson Controls, the contract that we did a couple of years ago. So last year we were able to actually go a lot further with our projects than maybe we thought we would, because we didn't have kids in our schools for a lot of days. So we're actually do a variety of different things, especially at our high school. We didn't substantially have kiddos there until about April. So that gave us an opportunity to do a lot of different upgrades. So I think we got a couple individuals. So Dr. Powelson, if you want to introduce our guests.
Joseph. Good evening. I'm Joe Torch with Johnson Controls. I'm the construction manager that's been overseeing this whole entire project for the last year. From the time we went into execution, the handout gives you some references to the things that we've accomplished over the last year. There's been a lot of changes. So we've removed and replaced 81 new HVAC rooftop units, 2 PMZs, which are multi-zone units. They're like HVAC units on the high school. A major reconstruction was the elimination of a lot of the smaller split system HVAC systems on the 100, 200, 300, 400 home high schools. We implemented and installed a VRF system.
You gotta mute it.
Sorry.
I didn't think I was that dynamic.
We're awake now.
Just so you know, this is my first board meeting ever, in all the years that I've ever done this, so if I seem a little nervous, bear with me. Again, the VRS system is a totally new system. And it comprises close to 100 individual pieces in various buildings, parts of the building, different rooms, and things like that, stuff on the roof. We replaced a chiller in the middle school that was in desperate need to replace. Also, we placed 2 new hot water boilers for that building, so that building is in good shape moving forward for both the heating and the cooling season. To Dr. Rodriguez's comments about addressing air quality, all of the rooftop units have UV lighting installed. The VRF system has what's called a bipolar ionization system installed, so it helps like do the decontamination of the germs as the air passes through those systems. District-wide, we've implemented a new building automation control system called Metasys. So we have visibility of all the buildings that can be seen as far as how they're reacting to certain things. Its capability is across the internet. Someone can be sitting at home watching what's going on. Alarms will let people know if there's issues with, something goes down, water pressure, heating or cooling, or things like that. So that's a very big piece of making these buildings smart. Even though the buildings are old, they can still be made smart. Not an easy challenge, but it can be done. District-wide, we upgraded all the lighting to LED lighting. Constitutes 10,200 fixtures and lamps that we've changed. District-wide, we've done water conservation, 281 flush valves, 90 toilets, 524 faucet aerators, and installed a new ice machine. And then the last item we did was building weatherization. There were some buildings that there were gaps between the wall and the ceilings, the roof line, that you could see outside. So that was just an avenue for cold air or hot air to just transfer in between. Sealed all those up. So we've tightened up the envelope on the building. We're going to be able to control those environments a little bit better. A lot of work done by a lot of hard people over the last year. Along with the challenges that Dr. Rodriguez mentioned about, COVID and access and things like that.
You want to say anything?
Hello, everyone. Dr. Rodriguez and myself, we've kind of had a long-term relationship, and we've been talking about upgrading Grandview for years, and finally last year, he pulled the trigger and said, "Yeah, I think we need to do this now." I think once we got in there and started looking at where this stuff was at and what we're doing, the timing was absolutely perfect to get some of this stuff done. And so we really appreciate, the partnership. What we signed up for was being your partner for 20 years. And so we'll be here. I think Joe's a testament to standing behind, making sure that everything gets done correctly. There's been a few bumps in the road, but we're working those out. And again, I only live just the next county over, a couple exits down. So, anytime I can come up here and help or visit or look at new things for you guys, I definitely will. But yeah, just want to reassure that we are going to be your partner for 20 years, making sure all this works out. And Joe's one of the best that we have to work on this project. So thank you again.
What we have there. Questions?
Just one comment, after being here for quite a while and hearing about rooftop units and everything going on, it's awesome to see this actually happen. So thank you. It was dearly needed. So thank you.
Yeah, the one thing I would add is, and I deal with this a lot in all the times I deal with customers from this aspect. Everyone gets excited because we're putting a bunch of new equipment in, long overdue. I can't stress enough the importance of regular maintenance of this equipment as well. It is so critical to keep the maintenance up. It's like taking your car and not ever changing oil. Eventually it's going to break and it's not going to work for you the way it should. So from my perspective, because I'm a construction guy, it just tears me up when I see customers just take for granted that they just put new stuff in and they don't have to stay on top of it. So,
Yeah, I think that's the conversation we're in right now. We've got a lot of new equipment, so how do we make sure that we keep it going as best we can and not all of a sudden have an issue in 5 years because we didn't do regular maintenance on it and things like that. So it's always great to have a bunch of new stuff, but then you have to make sure you're taking care of it. So definitely a partnership, and definitely things that we have to kind of go through. And like you said, there's been some bumps in the road and some things, but overall, I still think that we've made a positive step forward in making sure that we have updates to items that have been needed to update for a long time. I'm not sure we would have been able to do as many of these projects by ourselves in any way, shape, or form at this level. So this is a lot of stuff to happen in a pretty short period of time. So really pleased with that particular component.
So, a couple questions. Joe, one's for you. What did you find the biggest challenge over the last year?
one was the access around COVID and trying to accommodate when school was in session, when teachers needed to be in classrooms, especially the VRF work. That was tearing things up, tearing ceilings out. If you ever get the opportunity, I suggest you try to walk through those classrooms and see the change from what it was. So that access was a challenge. Always a big challenge is we learn what your buildings are like, whether it's yours or whatever customers' buildings are like. When we go into a project in the onset, it's kind of high level. We got a good idea of what's going to work, what's not going to work. It's not until I start getting into it and I start to find out what the challenges are. Water pressure has been an issue for us for some time. We're still working through that. Balancing of ductwork has been a challenge. The 2 PMZ units, we found units that were originally installed that they ran, but they weren't connected to anything. They were just running. So, we went through a troubleshooting process to make sure that they were running as efficiently as possible. Things like that. Middle school with the boiler and the chillers, none of the pipes down there are labeled. So as staffing changes, we have a challenge that we'll be with you guys through of changing over that building from cooling to heating and making sure that the right valves are turned off and things are turned on. I won't feel comfortable knowing that we've done everything we can until we get through a heating season, which is, March, April. We're starting to see the seasons change now. It's just a dynamic, just like your house. You'll have a nice day. You'll open up the windows. At night, it cools down quite a bit. Got to turn your furnace on. I mean, we're at that cusp, so that's a challenge. But overall, we've had a lot of good cooperation with everybody here, which is always a plus. That's always a challenge. Resources. And also to Kenny Rodriguez's comments, staffing for us, not just Jack Johnson Controls, but all the contractors, has been a challenge. I really believe that the school district should focus on trying to accelerate the learning capabilities for individuals to not just have to go to college and learn things, but we need skilled trade labor. There's no question about that. We don't have that going into the future. We are in big trouble. I'm in big trouble now as I look to try to do the next projects that we go into.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I can continue on with the challenges.
That's good. I
I won't
appreciate
more
that.
of your time.
No, you're fine. So one of the things that you said actually leads into my next question. I think we talked about this just a little bit, but you made the comment about units that were running but not attached to anything. And so when we approved the contract, one of the things that that was part of that was cost savings and rebates and some things. And so I'm assuming something like that's just costing us money if it's not doing anything. So that's
Correct.
good that was fixed. But either Dr. Rodriguez or Dr. Carlson, do you have any sense yet of how much savings we've been able to realize to this point with these changes?
I think it's hard to pinpoint, but we just, it was like, I mean, it seems like just the other day, it's probably been a month now, but those rebates that you got.
That we have received over $200,000 worth of rebates so far. And that's been an exciting part, first step. Can you speak to any more of the energy savings and how's that tracked, Joe?
Well, there's what we call an MMV process, measurement and verification, where we will monitor and register your costs against what was projected to be savings. And that just takes into account water usage, electricity usage, gas usage. Natural gas usage is going to drop in some buildings pretty dramatically. High school, perfect example. There were 3 big hot water heating boilers previously that basically just supported piping into the locker rooms. We learned that the locker rooms didn't even work what was there. So us putting new equipment there was great. We've improved it. In fact, I've been told that the units we put on the locker rooms have made the locker rooms like meat lockers. They're very cold now compared to what they had before. But just the gas savings from those big giant boilers, hot water boilers, to only support a few systems is going to be a big savings. It's hard to pinpoint one particular item. What we've done is addressed a lot of different things. And through that, you're going to see a culmination of savings, not so much immediately, but over time. I'd like to see that result in about a year. Again, after we've been through a heating season, after we've been through another cooling season. We're now into a school year where the student population is at maximum capacity for all the buildings. Last year, we were fortunate to not have the students around as much, but students generate heat, computers generate heat. There's always an impact somewhere along the way.
Thank you.
And when they came in, they obviously got all of our bills and part of that to make sure that they had their baseline. So they have the baseline, they'll be able to track that over time and be looking forward to being able to share that in the future.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just one question on the rebates. What source are the rebates coming from? Just all the different energy companies. From electrical to, I can't even, I know there was at least 6 of them. I got them right here. So I'll show that later. They're basically from, placing equipment and they'll give you a rebate. Yeah, with more energy efficient.
Yes.
Yeah, the majority of the rebates came from Evergy. So you received rebates for all the LED lighting that was put into place, all the new HVAC equipment that's much more efficient, the new chiller. They did give you rebates on the boilers, but that's because they're not electric. But they are higher efficiency boilers, so you're going to see some savings there from the gas usage from that building. Metalweir was another school, if you recall, that we did all the rooftop units. So that's another school where the best thing about that was the 2 buildings that we really did the most work in, the high school and the middle school. We did it across the board on rooftop units. We didn't pick apart 6 of them over here and then the other 7 or 8 are so old that they're fighting each other. So we were able to pull that together.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we do need a motion on this one. Oh, no, it's not. No, we don't. It's informational. We don't need a motion.
Thank you guys very much.
We just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So we'll jump back up and, okay with you?
Please.
Okay. So we'll jump back up and C&I update. Like I said, we've got a variety of different information, just kind of keep you updated on kind of what's going on and how we're kind of running things throughout. So I've asked Dr. King to kind of take us through what her team has put together.
Okay, so once again, through the state, we are able to get a grant for what is called an alternative method of instruction, or AMI days. And this was originally intended for like inclement weather or those kind of things, but the state has now granted that we can use it for other emergencies and for quarantines or COVID-related emergencies that we have for students. So we have now taken our plan and created some action steps for everybody to kind of be on the same page so that we know what's going to happen. So I'm going to share a little bit of information with you and then answer any questions that you might have as well. So basically, we have for all staff some basic requirements to have so that we can have this happen fluid in and out. So our K-5, using a platform of Seesaw so that everybody is, all assignments are placed on there. There's a way to communicate back and forth with parents that's easy and friendly for parents and students alike. So there's a basic requirement that all teachers at K-5 are using this so that if a child were to be quarantined, it would not be something strange or unfamiliar. They can just go in and out of quarantine is the theory or the idea. We continued our use of Canvas in 6-12 like we were doing last year. So that has also been a fluid way to be able to continue your instruction in and out. So we just have some basic requirements for all staff, knowing that we've got to keep this up so that if a child were to be quarantined in class A or class E, it doesn't matter. There would be instruction or there would be information there for parents and student alike when they were to go in and out. The next tab, we have information on if a student were to quarantine, what would happen? So basically, if a student were to quarantine and they're not sick, they could continue learning as normal. There's a continuation of what they could just normally get. If it's K-5, they get their device, they log on to Seesaw, and they're ready to go. They have contact with their teacher daily, and they have all their assignments, and they can just begin their learning back and forth. If it is 6-12, it's on Canvas. They can just continue learning as they normally would and have some sort of contact for office hours with the teachers there at the high school. If they are too sick to continue learning, if they're actually are sick, COVID or are sick for another reason, we would give them just like we would if it was a sick day. You would get 1 day to every day you're sick to complete any of that work. So if they're out for 10 days, they actually have 20 days then to complete the work that's on there. So it's a one-to-one kind of a thing. And they work with their teacher on figuring out those assignments. So we have all that laid out for what it would be determined. All of this comes from HR, gives us this is how long the child will be quarantined. And then that kicks in a plan for how we put it in core data, how we mark their absence, and then it kicks into how the teacher then starts that lessons back and forth with families as well. The next tab talks about if a teacher had to be quarantined. And one of the things we talked about is we have some teachers that can get quarantined that aren't really sick. But yet we still have to have a sub because we have kids in class. So we're still having to pay for a sub, but we have teachers that could still do something to help out with the instruction from home. And so we came up with a plan for they can either take their full day, and if they're too sick, or they just choose to, they can take the day, or they can earn up to a half day. They can take a half day PDO and then put in 3.5 hours of work. And then what would that look like for that work? Not necessarily could do small groups coming into a classroom if they wanted to, like in the elementary, do a guided reading lesson and then have the sub teaching the rest of the class. That could happen if they wanted to, at the high school level, at the beginning of every class, they could zoom in and talk at the beginning of a class or a certain class. Or if they knew there were certain students that needed some extra help, they could work one-on-one with some students. But basically giving some activities or something that we could, then it's a way to let our teachers have, they get 10 days for COVID leave. It's a way to stretch it to 20 days for them if they so choose to do that, because they can work those half days. We do ask that it gets principal approval to be able to entertain that, because it really does need to be thought out of what does that 3.5 hours look like and how is it student contact instead of just doing the things at home in that way. It really is how are we going to make sure that this is affecting student learning from home. Then thinking ahead, we thought, what if a whole class has to quarantine? What would that look like? So the next tab goes through if an entire class had to, this has not happened yet, but if an entire class or a large group had to be quarantined due to exposure, what would happen? And so we kind of laid out a plan for what would happen. And then based on if it's an elementary, I kind of have a schedule placed out on how that would look. The whole class had to be quarantined, including the teacher or the teacher to come in and do this from school. All that would depend on what happened during that exposure time and those kind of things, the teachers vaccinated and whatnot. And then we have middle school, what would happen, and then at the high school level, what would happen if an entire class. At the high school level, it would most likely not be a class that we quarantine because they change classes. It's going to probably be the next tab. If we truly had that many students that had to be quarantined, most likely it's going to affect more than one class. So if we had to do a whole building quarantine, what would that look like? So if we had to do an entire building, we have a plan for that as well. And what that would look like at the elementary level, what that would look like at the middle level, and then what that would look like at the high school level. Basically plotted out by time frames as well. So if we were ever had to do this, we would have a fluid plan to make sure we could go in and out if needed. Hopefully won't need it. Be glad to entertain any questions or anything I can answer for you.
I just have one question in regards to your teacher quarantine tab. Is there a potential down the road for neither one of those options? Like for instance, let's say they have COVID, but they're asymptomatic, right? And so they're feeling fine just like you and I, and they can teach actually remotely from home their entire day. I understand the substitute in the room for supervision, but is there a potential to work that scenario instead? So they're not taking any of this time off. They're really actually teaching, they're just remotely.
Well, the district still has to pay for that sub.
Understood.
That's part of that particular piece of just doing that, but we actually had that discussion and what we came up with, and truthfully, there was actually a team that kind of came up with, so we didn't really entertain that as a possibility. I don't know if anyone of you want to speak to that as well, but we did not entertain that as a possibility, and we just decided this would be the best possibility. It doesn't mean that we won't revisit it. We also said that we would continue to revisit it based upon what we saw.
That's fair.
There's some filling rate with sub rates and so on and so forth. What we also consider is the fact that if I'm a teacher in quarantine, my home situation may look completely different from the teacher down the hall sub situation if they were to be home. We have some teachers in our district that don't have reliable internet. So is it equitable to say you could have the opportunity to teach from home, but yet I don't have internet, so I don't have that same option versus another teacher that I have 5 children at home and I can't teach at the same time as somebody, and, so there's a lot of variables that go into that kind of decision, and it became just a easier way to say, okay, 3.5 is doable within that time frame rather than the full day. But again, it's not something that this was the plan we came up with at the time, given the circumstances that we have here, and so far.
Fingers crossed. We're good, right? No, that's cool. I just, everything's in flex, right? So I was just
Yeah, and
curious.
I just wanted to chime in that I feel like this was really the intent behind this was to help teachers and provide another layer of COVID benefit that at least gets them something towards that relief that kind of you're talking about. So.
No, that's fair. I was just kind of thinking of the folks that maybe, and to your point, it would be a person by person basis, which makes it harder, but people that would maybe potentially not fall in either one of these buckets, right? So.
Good point.
Any questions? I just have one. On your homebound tab, or the student quarantine, I guess, tab. So the homebound piece of it, I was looking at exceeding 15 days of absence, homebound designation is assigned. So you mentioned earlier about substitutes and the struggles there. I think everybody knows across the country, it's just tough to get substitutes right now. So we're not unique there. But the thing I saw in there is that there would be an hour or more each day assigned a specific teacher. So would that potentially go hand in hand with these half PDO type? Would they be the ones to help that? Because I'm thinking, how are we going to have enough teachers?
It could. We really try to, their own classroom teacher becomes their homebound teacher.
Okay.
And it is for every day they're out, they do 1 hour of instruction, like one-on-one full on instruction. It's a different layer. It's a different type of instruction rather than the AMI what we have. And the idea was that we last year, what we tried to do if the kid was quarantined, we did homebound immediately. And then understanding that, in 1 week, I believe we had 70 students quarantined. We just simply don't have the manpower to be able to do that. Whereas we could do this, and then once you pass that 15-day threshold where it does become something that's a little bit more, it's not manageable at this point with what we're doing here, then it becomes then what we can do with that one-on-one. And usually we try to use the same classroom teacher, but potentially there is a way. If we've got a teacher that's quarantined, could they do it? We have to check certification has to match up. They know it has to be elementary, and so on. There's things to look into there.
We also figured that a student that is going to be at that particular point, normally we would probably use this process for any illness or anything that would really happen that say, hey, I'm going to be medically needing attention for whatever purpose, even before COVID, we were still going to have those particular challenges. So we do have a homebound process and everything. And so it just goes into kind of the homebound special education kind of process, even though they may not be a special education student. So special education students, they're going to be, make sure that they get those services from that department. This would be, like you said, hopefully from the classroom teacher, if they're able to do that.
So would that be like in the high school, it's their off period, and so they would be connecting them with the student at that time? If it's elementary or middle.
Or after school, because
After
they're
school.
paid extra money for that time. so
Okay,
they-
okay.
so they're
Yeah, I was
actually-
trying to
they're actually paid.
How'd you fit that in?
Yeah.
They're
This is
actually
above their
above-
contract. If they-
above-
Okay, okay, so this is an extra thing, I'm helping you out, but I'm gonna get.
They can do it on a Saturday, they can do it, it's working out between the family and the student.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that's the piece I was missing.
Yeah, once it kicks into that, then it becomes separate. It may still be the same person, but it's an additional piece.
Gotcha. Okay, that's great. I love that.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, just wanting to keep in the loop there.
All right, we'll move on. Workforce excellence. Nothing submitted there, so we'll continue.
Will.
Stewardship.
Run down there. So Dr. Powelson, you want to start?
I would, we just really wanted to bring a delivery method that we were looking at as a possibility. It's nothing in stone at this time. It's construction management at risk. And again, there's several forms of delivery for construction. There's construction agency, there's just the old hard bid where you kind of have an architect and they go out and hard bid things. So, and I'm sorry, I don't have those specific titles for you, but the construction management at risk is, as I looked at board policy a little bit, and that's that policy FED. We just really wanted you to know we're in that process of looking at people. We're trying to interview to figure out what's best for the projects we have coming forth with this district, bond issue projects. If you follow that board policy, a CMAR might be somebody to use. If you read the policy, it's really projects over $3 million. So it'd be something more substantial. So we might end up doing a combination of both. We might, who knows where we're going. We definitely have architects selected as you've done in the past, your past work. So we have them to kind of lean on a little bit. And I just really wanted you to be aware we are going through that process because I heard from the bond sales, we're going to have a proposal for you to start selling some bonds here pretty quick as well. So
This is something we've not done in this district in a while. Some of this language has changed in terms of law. And so it's just really trying to make sure that everyone is kind of kept in the loop. This was revised in 2020, this policy was, but the policy itself is not that old. So that the construction manager has happened here in the district before, but we've not ever hired a construction manager at risk. You can see that that's relatively new in terms of school districts. So we're still kind of reviewing what this would look like and what we potentially do. So we'll meet with architects over the course of the next couple of weeks and see what we want to do. If we utilize this, you can see the process that's outlined in policy and exactly what we would do. The request, a request that has to go out for qualifications, and then we outline that, and then we do proposals from a couple groups that we want to bring back. And you guys, some of you have seen our process before in the committee and kind of scoring based on a variety of different levels, and we would post all that. So we'll keep you in the loop of all that stuff. I just wanted to at least put this in front of you and let you know, so if you start to hear some of those kind of things, we do go forward with this, that you're not taken by surprise.
Would this be like, on staff with the school district or a third party?
It's truly a third party. A lot of the construction companies do that. Again, the process is when you send out requests for them to come in with it. By law, Missouri law, you at least have to interview 2 different companies. You have as many interviews you want, but by law, you have to at least interview 2. And so we'd interview them for their qualifications, of what would fit best for the projects we have, if we decide to go this route.
So when we do projects like the playground, or the redesign of the school we just did, who's overseeing those projects? Is that, we have a gentleman here to speak from Johnson Controls. I'm assuming they oversee that. Do we not get a person that represents those interests within the money that we're spending for those projects to be completed already? Or are we suggesting that that's not existing now, we need one, or is there one and it's not working out the way we think it should, or what's, let me understand.
To me, Johnson Controls is just, that's a different deal because that's a specific thing they provide. This is really the construction of a major project. So yes, having an architect like we had in the playground, that's probably more a hard bid process. The architect took the project we wanted, he took it to several companies, they hard bid on it, like APCO was one of the winning people on that project. So that's one delivery method. This method, the CMAR specifically, they guarantee you a price, and that price can't go, the project cannot go over that price. And at the same time, as construction manager at risk, they would hold all the contracts. Where construction management agency, we hold all the contracts, the district does, we have to pay monthly bills. Where I've seen savings in this type of method in the past, and again, I'm talking $10 million type projects here, but their savings is because they can negotiate so much better. My example that we did, we built this weight room in my past district, and the bids came in for the walls of the weight room, prefab weight room, because it was also going to be a storm shelter. And they said, hey, that's not good enough. That's got to be cheaper. And instead of accepting everything on bid day, they went back to that company and said, hey, you got to do better. And they cut the price of those walls $150,000. So at the end of the day, the reason I wanted to just bring this to the board's attention as an option, we did save $800,000 on that project, on a $10 million project, just because of the efficiencies they was able to do by negotiation instead of hard bid. Sometimes those bid days get a little difficult because maybe a lot of people's busy. Maybe it's a bad time of year to put out a bunch of bids, and subcontractors get a lot. So the CMR gives that person the ability maybe to negotiate things better at a cost they've seen with similar projects they've worked on.
Two major things that are at risk. The first thing is cap. Here's your project. This is how much we got. Here's your list of stuff. It cannot, it doesn't matter what happens, it can't go at price. And it's that guy, that company's job to take care of it. It will not, and the job still has to be done. The second thing is the at-risk part. About Johnson Control. The water thing wouldn't be the school district problem. It'd be that at-risk contractor. They would get it resolved at that price. Those are the two major things that happen.
The change orders sometimes that we have brought to the school or to the board of, hey, we have to, we need you to authorize a $15,000 change order because this came in at whatever. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's pro and con because again,
Right.
We're adjusting based upon what we're seeing, but they're gonna bid that at this price. And like you said, this is the amount. That's it. That's what it's gonna cost you. In the end, it doesn't matter what happens. Cost of steel just doubled. Doesn't matter. This is the price that we bid at, and you get this. So with the supply chain, with some things, I am both kind of thinking it's a good and concerning, idea at the same time. So I just think I want to entertain the idea of it. And so I wanted to, like I said, wanted to make sure and bring it to you so you guys can at least hear that as an opportunity.
So then, just last question, so is the CMAR, should you go in that direction, is it per project? that you would, look at obtaining one, or would it be one for everything that you might have in mind?
I think we can do either or. And with the way our projects are, we can do either or. We could identify a phase one, and this is the projects we want you to take care of. And they would analyze all those projects in that basket. Because obviously we're not gonna do all 45 million on one wire, so. Or, do you use the CMAR on a bigger project, say there's a $7 million type project in there, and you use architects and things like that, the hard bid process on the others. So we got a lot of moving pieces on that. Times are challenging, as you know, with everything going on in our world and supply issues and things. Again, just really wanted to bring it to you guys as an option that we were looking at. So,
Any other questions? This one does require a motion, correct? To authorize?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
We're authorized by board policy to be able to do that. I wanted to bring it to you to, well, I guess so. We kind of had the recommendation to authorize me to prepare that. So
That's what I was reading, so I'm like,
we're authorized by board policy, but I just thought I'm bringing it, let's do it this way.
so you would like a motion?
Just please.
Okay. We're on the same page here,
I
right?
couldn't get to that tab. That's like some of this.
I'm reading it, it
Trying
says
to read exactly
recommendations
what you put.
authorized, I swear that's a motion.
and that's why.
All right.
we do have this. I will, unfortunately, our computer there has gone down, so we are still live streaming, so our audience will be able to see something online that you don't have in front of you, but I think you have access to it. We were talking about this over the course of the last little bit, and we delayed this for a month to make sure that we could come back with it now. But I want to make sure that we go through every single year and give you a review of kind of the past year. Yep, that's it. Yeah, that'd be great. I don't know how many things I can do at once. I might be able to AirPlay it. There it is. So we have a couple different things to go through it. Just a reminder, number one, this is the end of our second year. This last year was the end of our second year of a five-year process. A lot of things went differently last year than what we were intending whenever we created this plan. I don't think any of us had any idea of where we would be today, but just a reminder, as we're going through this, this is the end of 2021. And so this is information from last year and how we ended as of June 30, according to what we had kind of planned on. So as you look at this, everything's still kind of color coded. Red doesn't necessarily mean that it's really, really bad. It just means that was an area that didn't quite meet exactly what we were hoping to in terms of timeline, in terms of goal, one particular piece. So since your eye kind of automatically goes to that, we will try to focus on those a little bit, but then also highlight one or two things along the way that might certainly be a positive as well, because in spite of that, like I've said, we've actually accomplished a lot of different things as a school district and be able to move forward. Governance area, obviously being number one. There's a few different pieces of this. And so as you go into and your eye kind of goes to one particular area, in the objective of our safe and caring, inclusive culture, one of the areas that we struggled with, and certainly we've set as one of our goals, is making sure that we advance the implementation of cultural competency throughout our district. So one of the action steps that we had associated with that was making sure that we basically establish framework, but that we're working with families and we're bringing families together and our parents together to have these conversations. We've had these conversations with all of our staff members since I've been superintendent 5 years ago, 2016. But to be able to involve more of our families and bring them in and have those discussions. Obviously, last year was not the time to bring people in, to have discussions one-on-one and to do those kinds of things. So we were not able to meet that action step. I do have additional plans for us to do that, hopefully in the second semester that we can do more of those opportunities, but we will kind of see how the health of the world goes and where we end up. But that is the reason why that particular piece is red. And then to a district-wide kind of committee and people from each individual school is still on docket for this school year to make sure that we identify that, and meeting with additional groups of students, which will occur probably over the course of the next 2 months. Again, I still think that there's a lot of different components in here that are very positive. You guys need to be very, very proud with the strategic governance side of the things that we've been able to do and we've been able to move forward with in our district. But that is one area that's still definitely a focus of our school district. I'm very proud that it's a continued focus of our school district, and I'm looking forward to continuing to move that in the future. Any questions around focus area 1? We move to focus area 2 in student success. You can see again those goals as well in terms of achievement and obviously diversified learning experiences. So Dr. King.
So now we'll talk about the best part of the strategic plan, the student success part of the strategic plan. So as you see, we've been able to accomplish a lot of things. Some of the things on our strategic plan, we were actually able to move forward with faster last year because of the Wednesdays. Having those days where we didn't have students, we were actually able to move things further with some teacher professional development and some new learning with proficiency skills and those kind of things that we were thinking it was going to take us more years to get through. And then you will also see there are some parts of our strategic plan that we were unable to, simply because if you go down to the student achievement, I mean, we had the first time COVID hit, we didn't even take math assessment tests or DOC tests. So obviously we couldn't show improvement that year. Last year, we did not show improvement. So I really can't say that we moved forward on that. We did take the test last year. What I can report back to you all, I gave you the results of our math test, and we did drop. But proportionally, we did drop the exact same way that the state did. So we now have state results, and we dropped in proportion to everybody else, which is but also a big, as one of my team members said today, it's still a flat tire. The whole state has a flat tire. And so we still have a lot of work to do, and we still have a lot where to go. But it was nice to see that we were proportional to where the state fell, and we didn't fall any greater than the state fall. So you will see on my strategic plan during objective C there are those two things that I was unable to say that we've made progress on. The other ones you see that we are making progress on. We go to the next objectives. One thing that we were not planning to get to, was not slated to get to, was being able to create virtual learning. It wasn't slated to get till next year on our strategic plan. We've already been able to do a lot more with that. And then thinking forward thinking to next year is how do we create our own academy, our own virtual academy, so that we house that within rather than having our students go out like we're doing that outsourcing to launch this year. So how do we create that in-house, and knowing that this is now a mode of learning that it's going to be around. So how do we make sure that we are on top of that and being able to provide those for our own students as well? So thinking ahead, what that will look like, planning for that, happy using some ESSER funds, using to understand what equipment will be needed, what kind of teacher training, and thinking strategically ahead on those parts as well. So I feel very, very happy with the progress we've made on our CSIP. We definitely have a lot of work to do on our student achievement, but I feel we're getting primed. We're able to make those big moves coming up the next couple of years. Any questions on student success?
Focus area 3, we will move into workforce excellence. So nothing that way. I know, I feel like now she's going to start the same way that that Dr. King did, but workforce excellence will be focus area 3. So I will turn that over to Dr. Maya. Goal 2.
Yes, so goal 2. As you can see, this goal itself accomplished a lot of things in the middle of COVID. I think where I'm honing in on and kind of picking up that baton would be under action step 3. We are going to provide a diversity survey embedded with an engagement survey that we're working on right now, so that happens systemically across the whole district. And then under objective B, looking at action step 4, I'll work alongside Dr. King. We're working to create a leadership academy where we can recruit, mentor, and train future leaders within the Grandview School District. With hopes to move them up and along and include them in that work and that training while they're still teaching. So that's that.
It's been something that we've talked about for a long time in this district, and seeing how we could potentially do that. We've done a fairly good job of promoting from within and trying to provide those opportunities, but a formal process to make sure that we can do that is still something that we want to do, and looking at some good opportunities to be able to accomplish that. So very exciting for things to come in that regard. Any questions? Okay, focus area 4. There's a lot of different goals outlined in there once you go into the action steps and things, but I will let Dr. Powelson take over.
Thank you much. I do appreciate the strategic plan. really has helped identify areas that we do well as finance department. And so looking, where am I there? That action step 2, the zero base, there's nothing on that. On that zero-based budgeting, to identify areas of enhanced stewardship to district resources. We just really plan on working with our principals and trying to do a better job in the community. I think we've done a great job preparing budgets and being good stewards of tax dollars and all that. Just want to do a little better job on the communication side. So people really kind of understand.
And I'll just jump in just real quick of, this is something that Ms. Cook and I talked about for the last 2 years, and we were looking forward to what we could potentially do. Obviously, COVID changed a lot of different pieces, and you know, she made the decision to retire. It didn't make much sense for us to try to go through that process, knowing that we had a new person coming in. So definitely is one of the things that Dr. Powelson and I have talked about, is how do we recreate this budget, and how do we go through a different process and just update that. So this was already something that we were looking at trying to do, and we just had to pause that for a moment. So timing wise, that's kind of part of the reason why that's kind of not done yet.
Thank you. So down on objective C, that action step 3, revised capitalization threshold. We just, as we look at our budget codes and things with the new funds we're receiving from different entities, ESSER funds, all those types of things, we need to keep improving our budget codes and identifying things in proper areas. So we put a little mark on there that we need to keep a hold of that, keep our eye on it, do a better job there if we can. Next.
That it?
Should be 2.
Yep, we're there.
How come I have a lot more than everybody else? That's what
We talk about.
I feel it. Okay, so that action step 5, ensure all grounds are consistently maintained on Apple 3, level 3, and progress to Apple 2 by year 5. So the Apple levels, as Sodexo's contract writes out, really the Apple level 1 is the pristine. That I think I've talked to you about that a little bit before. So we really want to keep improving our grounds and making things look better and better as time goes on. So we had to use bright view and some things like that. We feel like we can improve in that area, so we mark that for area we want to do better in. Action step 7. Thank you for putting that up there where I can see it. Reduce reliance on subcontracting services by 5% a year. Definitely, we wanted to identify that. We want to make special note of that. We do a lot of purchase service, it seems like, in the district. And we want to try to reach this goal as well. So we're still working on it, trying to do a better job. Down there, objective C, action step 4, increase student parent guardian input in menu development. We're kind of in food service stuff. You want me to talk about this as well?
Yeah, please.
We've already shared that really we're lucky to get food. Our menus have had to change just because I think she told us at a meeting the other day, about 80% of the food she orders, it comes in a different form. So because of COVID and things, we just that's an area we need to keep looking at as this year progresses.
Yeah, and actually several of the things that you're going to see on the food service side kind of stopped because last year we weren't even necessarily in session. So a lot of things that we did, as you know and well know, we were just giving food away. We were taking as much food as we could to our community. We were just trying to provide as much. So we didn't have regular lunch participation. We didn't really have those same trackable measures because we were giving out as much food as we could. The government said, there's everybody's basically free and reduced, just, make sure that everybody gets to eat. So we didn't get to increase tracking and participation of these kind of things. And so we're kind of back to that now and kind of looking at that of how we do it. So we were just trying to be honest about, we really didn't do any of those things because we really couldn't based upon where we were. So
I think that's well said. And that's a great answer for 6, 7, 8, and 10.
Just trying to help you out, man.
Thank you, Doctor.
They said you were special, so I felt bad. I wanted to make sure to hook you up.
I am interested in the locally grown produce within the community. How are we going to measure that? How are we gonna, how are we gonna reach out and figure out who that is and how that will look and feel? I think that's awesome.
You know, I think when we created that, and I think even with Sodexo, you know, we were doing a couple of different things. Number one, we have the community garden, you know, here in Grandview. We have, you know, the high school was very interested and still is in some of the things that they're doing with the beds and growing some local produce. And so it was trying to reach out. There are local growers in KC that are really focused on trying to get home and local produce into as many of the surrounding communities as possible. So this was a partnership with Sodexo of how do we make sure that we work that in there as well, and getting that. How do we track that? It's really about what can we supplement? So every single month we make sure that we have a particular item and where is that going to be grown from, rather than it coming from one of their partners that they get shipped in. So especially now, this is something that I really want us kind of, again, looking at because of the reliance that we're having on other individuals. How do we do that? You're really probably not going to be able to do it on a global level very well, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to explore how we do it. So I think we would track it to be able to say, number one, we don't do any of that right now. So nothing that we do is necessarily locally sourced. So anything that we do is going to be in addition to that. And so I think it's recreating those menus, looking at it from a different perspective, and trying to make sure that we identify a stable source of something that we could actually put in, and so that all of our students could benefit from it.
Yes.
Only if it's jam related.
You gotta have an outcome in the library. What better way?
We will go on to focus area 5, unless there's any other questions. He'll talk about it all day. As we've done before, you know, whenever we created this, we kind of had the individual areas of focus, and obviously Ms. Cordier took the lead role in family and community involvement. So thank you very, very much for being here. We will
I'm so glad to be here and see you guys.
We'll turn it over to you for an update.
Well, first of all, focus area 5, that's of course the family and community involvement. Looking at objective A, that was just looking at our technology. On action step 4, that was looking at providing opportunities for parents to set preferences on their communication. We kind of stepped back on that because we did not want our parents to have to change their communication, especially with the information that we were giving parents in reference to COVID. So we just felt that this was an opportunity if the parents, the way they were receiving communication, we wanted to continue that way. Action step 5, it was in reference to evaluating the effectiveness of the current communication practices. With that, Sheba was able to meet with most of the schools and look at the way their websites and the way they were communicating with parents. So of course, that is a focus that she will continue this year. With objective B, looking at the way we revisiting or revising, the district internal communication. We began to look at that. We will continue to look and make updates to our current internal communication, which is GDNet. Looking at goal 2.
Let me just add something real quick.
Yes.
Our internal intranet hasn't really been updated in a very long time. It probably looks exactly like it did whenever you retired. We haven't really done anything to revise that. We've changed how we communicate with our internal folks, and we've increased a variety of different information and the things that Sheba has created to give them more information, including like board briefs and anything that we can do to give them the information. But specifically how we go to one site, intranet, here you go, this is all the information that you need to do. That's something that we're still trying to make sure that we update. And so that's in progress for sure.
Looking at goal 2, encouraging our stakeholders to participate in student activities and academics. One, action step 3, that was where we would do the needs survey for Community Academy. We did not do that. However, we did use the survey from the previous year. So from the 1920 school year, we did continue with that needs survey. I can share with you that we took the information. We were able to be in partnership with Literacy KC for ESL, which was number 4 with the parent need. So we started that in February of 2021. It is actually continuing. So if you went past today, you saw some cars, that was the ESL class with our partnership. We were also able to offer 2 classes in May on mental health. It was signs of suicide and also talking to bigs, littles, and middles. And that tied in directly with the May as being mental awareness. So we were able, although we did not have the survey, we were able to continue the need. And finally, on goal 3, it was providing and improving quality customer service. Action step number 2 of objective B, identify the standards and measures. We did identify the standards. Building administrators were shared those standards. And however, this year we will be looking at a specific tool that administrators will be able to use in order to check and evaluate the effectiveness of customer service within the schools.
So again, coming back to you, just trying to give you an update of what happened last year in terms of our strategic plan. So we'll continue to do this. We'll come back halfway through and kind of tell you where we're at around January, to kind of see what we've done for the first part of the year. And then typically this would be done, like I said, in around August, so that you get an understanding of where we are. I was just trying to give my team members a little bit more time to get under their feet there, and I thought one month in wasn't really nice for us to try to do that, month and a half in. So gave them a little bit more opportunity, but really excited with where we are and what we're able to accomplish as a district. Certainly there are areas for us to focus on, which is why we have this plan. We're also going to be going and looking at, when we created it, one of the things that I made sure and tell every single group was I didn't see this as a static document that we are forced to stick with all of these. The world's changed. So are we adapting with that? Are there goals now that we need to change? Like, you know what? Our world doesn't look like that anymore. So what do we need to change and update to make sure that it is adapting with that? We know more now than we did before. So we'll continue to do that, and we'll look at what changes need to be done and certainly bring that back if we have those kinds of updates to make sure that you are aware and seeing that. But still very excited for where we are with the things that we've been able to accomplish, but definitely a lot of stuff that we need to do. That is all for us. Yes, Dr. Powelson.
I think from the executive summary, you kind of tell that our funds all total this month was $4,279,826. If I can get my glasses quit falling over, I can really talk. Compared to last year at $3,160,000, so we're up approximately $962,000 compared to this time last year. In those operating funds 1, 2, 5, and 6. And as far as expenditures, we're also up approximately $542,000. And we got a lot of projects going on the expense side. That's why those expenditures are up. But thanks to you folks and the hard work and increase the tax levy, that's why our revenues up as well. So we're doing fine financially.
Yeah, I'll call your attention to just a couple of things. Obviously, got a couple of meetings there to point out, but also want to make sure that you see the MSBA conference that is coming up. Used to be down by the lake. There may or may not have been one of the members sitting behind that table that may be disappointed that it's not where it usually is, because there was usually a meal that was associated with that. But we are having the MSBA conference. They are going back and forth between the Kansas City area and St. Louis area. So this year we are hosting. So there's a variety of different things that will be going on through that time. You can see those dates. I'll also point out actually our school district and myself and Dr. Maya will actually be doing a presentation on Saturday at the MSB conference about community partnerships and some of the things that we've been able to do here with our social and emotional learning, which we have talked about a lot with this school board, and one of the things that we're very proud of. So more on that to come, but since we are kind of hosts, certainly Dr. Bedell over in Kansas City is talking to a variety of different superintendents and just trying to make sure that we have a variety of things going on for individuals to be able to see in our awesome town. So we'll be doing some of those kind of things, but I do encourage you to have an opportunity to go to some of those sessions. It is really an amazing experience to be able to not only hear and learn, but obviously have conversations with other board members, and you learn a lot just by having those conversations. So encourage that. Other than that, that's all I have for salient dates.
You can say it again. Except that I thought it was last. I'm gonna be out of town, so Dr. King's taking my place. Sitting at the table, not running or walking.
Oh.
Yeah, let's just define what I'm doing.
Make sure and throw it out there just so everybody knows.
So it's 8 o'clock.
What's that? 8 o'clock. Yes, ma'am.
But you told me I had to be there at 6. Did
I
you
did.
tell me a story? Maybe.
Right.
I remember being there at 6 a couple of years ago. Check with, I'm gonna need to find out, I really need to get there.
Right.
Check with someone who really, because I was like, I'm gonna set my alarm. Because when I asked what time I was supposed to be there at our meeting, she said, you mean next Saturday? So that's when well, I'm gonna be finding out that because I'm gonna be, where's my coffee?
Last time my whole family had to draft something. And so I looked at my registration, came through, I said, oh, I signed this all up. 2 of my 4 said, no. I said, okay, I guess that's your registration. Someone needs 2 extra registrations. I have them.
I would encourage you all to do the same thing and sign your families up so that way they, yeah.
Yeah, I just look at it as a fundraiser.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll be participating. Frontline participation. On the table. Wow. All right, anything else? Anybody else have anything? Guys, go ahead.
I do. As you may know, this is my last night. Kind of a weird situation for me. The first time in 25 years I'm not going to visit. I've lived in this state for 15 square miles since I was. Had the opportunity to buy 7.5 acres, pond, work building, all that kind of good stuff on it. It's been a pleasure. I'll still be around though. I gotta pay for 2 pounds. So we are gonna have one once we get settled in, but I don't know when you want to come out in the cold. But
That's what bonfires are for.
My shop is bigger than my house.
Well, certainly, on behalf of cabinet, thank you very much for your service and appreciate you stepping up to do that and willingness to be a part of the board.
I feel like you teed me up just perfectly for that. So I do have a service pin for you to thank you for your last 1.5 years of service on our board. So we'll miss you. We appreciate everything you've done. I'll just
participation and your ideas, thoughts on things, and, especially around the water stuff. Really, really valuable. So you bring a really good perspective to our board, and we will miss you for sure.
There it is.
I did that on purpose. That was my plan. So thank you, Don. So as everyone knows, we do have, now we'll have 2 openings. So we will be to fill those through April soon. The other thing is related to that. So that creates another opening on a committee. So we already had 1 opening on our finance committee with our first departure, and this creates a second. So that leaves just our lovely treasurer left on our finance committee. So we do need to fill that with 2 more people. That meeting is on Tuesdays at 5:30, 5:15. Thank you. Sorry. How many times I've been to it. So is anyone remaining interested in joining that? Short meeting, so. Anybody else? So we can always wait for additional. Okay, everybody's raising their hands. So we'll move on. The only other position, or only other committee position that we have open is Grandview 10 still. So Damon, I know you had agreed to be an alternate on that. So again, if anybody's interested in that, we can also try to wait for additional folks and see if any of them are interested, but we do need to fill that last position on Grandview 10. So, do we know when they're meeting at Wednesday?
Next Wednesday will be their first meeting. They'll set the other meetings subsequently after that, but they'll meet together first to kind of talk about that piece.
Then they will come, is that what it is? Yes.
Blackbird Jam.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Peanut clusters.
If you, some of you maybe had some of those peanut clusters. They're pretty amazing.
So are you able to go to that?
Yeah, I'm going.
You're welcome. Okay, good. All right, so just throwing that out there again. So we've got 1 for finance committee. I think Dawn's board report time was almost September, wasn't it? Or October. Yours, so we'll just skip that. Probably. All right, that is all I had. Hopefully see everybody on Saturday in some capacity. If you're not joining. All right, move on. Final thing. Second. I'm in the second to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.